Hi everyone. So a couple of months ago, we went skiing for the first time, my family and I was really excited to go, but as soon as I got there, I was petrified. I stood there on the slopes, paralyzed with fear. I felt so out of control and it was the scariest feeling. And we hired an instructor and he was teaching us with the basics, which I totally recommend, by the way. Hire an instructor if you never went skiing before. And he really was very helpful. And my husband and my kids, everybody's following instructions and doing a great job, except for me. I kept falling and I kept panicking and my body was shaking. I was trembling every time it was my turn, and it was just so scary. In fact, I even said to the guard at one point, I'm like, is there a guardrail? Like, can I hold on to something? Like when you ice skate, you hold on to the edges. And I said to him, I promise you I'm really good at other things. I couldn't get it. It was the scariest thing for me. And as I'm standing there, paralyzed, petrified, to go down the slopes, and I'm watching everybody around me, 3-year-olds whizzing down the slopes ahead of me, and my family, everybody's doing it. I closed my eyes and I meditated right there on Sugar Mountain. And I said to myself, I am physically free. Nobody forced me to be here. I came here out of my own will. But yet, I feel like I am mentally imprisoned. And it made me wonder, what is freedom? Because we're all, thank God, physically free. But are we really free? Are there things that keep us paralyzed with fear? Are there things that control our minds in a way that don't allow us to live freely? How often do our minds control us with overthinking, with anxiety, with negative self-talk? Are we really free if we can't control our minds? I was physically free. I had the physical freedom to choose to go skiing that day. But mentally, I was completely imprisoned. And that's when I realized that I need to work on my mindset, because all of our power is in the mind. I had arrived on those slopes in a state of katnos demuchen, which is what the Gemara calls contracted consciousness. And I needed to get to a place of gadlos demuchen, which is expanded consciousness. In katnos demuchen, we are solely focused on the here and now. It's like living in tunnel vision, where we only see the small little reality that's right in front of us, and we're not able to see the bigger picture. And that's what causes so much fear, anxiety, negativity. All of that is in living in the state of contracted consciousness. But if we can move into expanded consciousness, that's when we experience the greater picture of life. We see things from a much broader perspective, and that enables us to see a more positive viewpoint. And it's very encouraging to know that there are more options out there, and we only experience that understanding that maybe there's something I can do that's in my control to improve my situation. We could only experience that when we live in expanded consciousness, because there are many things in life that we can't control. We can't always control our circumstances in life, but we can control our quality of life, because that is completely dependent on the way we perceive those circumstances in life. And again, we can only experience that when we live in expanded consciousness, because in contracted consciousness, all we see is the problem. All we see is the present circumstance, and we don't see a way out, and we don't see other options. And we don't realize that while I can't control many things in life, there's one thing that I do have control over, and that is my mind, my mindset, my perspective, my attitude. And that's when I realized it is much easier to take the Jew out of Egypt than to take Egypt out of the Jew. Because we're physically free, but are we really free? Are we mentally free? Are we emotionally free? Are we spiritually free? What's holding us back? What is keeping us imprisoned inside our own bodies, inside our own minds? You see, when the Jews were in Mitzrayim, and by the way, the root of the word Mitzrayim is mem tzadik resh, which is narrowness. There was a certain narrowness that they lived with when they were in there. They lived in contracted consciousness because they were victims, and they were legitimate victims and they lived in victim mentality. But Mitzrayim is actually plural because there wasn't only one type of imprisonment. They were set free physically, but were they set free mentally? The physical freedom was a gift. The mental freedom is where the work comes in. That's what we need to work on. And here's the thing. While the men in Mitzrayim may have lived in contracted consciousness, the women did not. The women, when they crossed the Yam Suf and they took out their tambourines and they had a drum circle and they started playing their instruments, where did they get them from? How did they have their instrument? They had to leave Bechip Hazon in such a rush. They had time to go grab their tambourines? Well, here's the thing. The women of Mitzrayim set their tambourines at the door way before liberation. They just knew that this was not going to be their permanent reality. They said there is going to be freedom on the other side of this. And when that happens, there's going to be an epic dance party. And I am going to prepare my tambourines at the door so that I can grab them and run when we are set free. That, my friends, is living in expanded consciousness, knowing that there is more, there's bigger, there's better. And how can I tap into that bigger and better? Life is not just the small little circumstance that I'm living in right now. And it's so easy to get sucked into that. And it's so easy to fall and trip over it again and again and live in that victim mentality. But we're just enslaving ourselves. We're living in a mental imprisonment if we can't break free from the thoughts that keep us slaves. So this year, as we sit down to the Pesach Seder, let's have that recognition that we're physically free, but are we emotionally free and are we mentally free? What am I a slave to? Am I a slave to my negative self-talk, to my fears, to my anxieties? Am I a slave to my negative midos and habits? Maybe those are things I need to break free from. Am I a slave to social pressure, to peer pressure? Am I a slave to American ideology and principles? Do I submit my values to political parties? Am I a slave to technology? What am I a slave to? What has control over me instead of me having control over it? What am I a slave to? Let's think about that and let's see how we could break free from whatever is keeping us enslaved. I wish you all a Chag Kasher Sameach. Have the most beautiful Pesach wherever you are, and may it truly be a Yom Tov of freedom for you, where you can set free from anything that is keeping you chained, anything that is keeping you enslaved. Love you all.